All right, good afternoon, everyone. I'm sure we'll still have others joining us for the next few minutes, but I want to go ahead and get us started. My name is Angelique Keys, and I am the Director of Development at Eat Real. Thank you all for joining us on this Monday afternoon. I'm sure everybody didn't have anything else to do. No one's busy. Just kidding. I know you're all busy. So we're very happy that you're here. For those who are coming off of the Sugar Challenge, way to go. You did it. Looking forward to hearing your feedback and for this very good discussion. And hopefully, like many of you, I plan to I can't promise all of it, but at least some of the changes going as I head into the holiday season. Today, we're going to be discussing good mood food and the relation between gut and mental health. Very excited to have leading integrated doctor, Dr. B'Anna Weatherly, and Dr. Reva Robinson here with us, along with our special guest, Sonia Hunt, who's a best-selling author, and our partner in the Sugar Challenge from the YMCA, Mike Cassidy. He's from YMCA East Bay. We were very excited to partner with the YMCAs of California this year. And of course, our CEO, Nora Latour. For those of you who aren't familiar with Eat Real, we're an award-winning children's health nonprofit that is working to redesign the food system and improving food access, real food access, and the overall quality of nutrition meals. We're on our way to helping 200,000 kids this year. I wouldn't be a director of development if I didn't put my plug in there that there is plenty of opportunity to support and help make this happen. We will have the information on how to donate coming out at the end and then also in follow-up emails. But for now, let's get into the discussion on nutrition and gut health. I'd like to hand the mic off to Mike Cassidy, the COO of YMCA East Bay, who will talk about the 7-Day Sugar Challenge and help us get into our panel discussion. Mike,
thank you. Thank you, Angelique, and welcome everyone. And how sweet it is. I know it's a dad joke, so I apologize. I am Mike Cassidy, the Chief Operating Officer, YMCA of the East Bay. Thrilled to be here. We serve a significant number of communities through our 5 branches, over 50 early learning and after school sites, a beautiful camp nestled in the Redwoods in Lomamar, and thousands of adults, seniors, and children participate in our transformative programs each day. We know the importance of health and the critical role that nutrition and real food plays in our health. So we were so excited to partner with Eat Real, share their passion and expertise with us, and to share them with in their passion for real food access and education to everyone that we serve. The 7-Day Sugar Challenge was our first adventure together, with many more to come on the horizon. And personally, in our house here, it was quite the challenge. It was a week of shock and awe, I like to say. And what we really committed to, my wife and I, was being very mindful of the labels of the foods that we bring into the house. And it was pretty disappointing. And so we've made the commitment on our own to pursue foods that don't have labels, which is our fruits and veggies. So on behalf of the YMCA, I want to congratulate each of you for finishing the challenge, for participating in the challenge. And in fitness, we usually say it's one day I'll do it or day one. And with what you've all done by completing this challenge is you started week 1 to a healthier you. And we're appreciative of being on that journey with you. So I want to thank Eat Well for helping us fulfill our mission to advance health. And now I'll hand over the mic to Nora, who is also my no sugar mentor. So thanks for being here.
Thanks, Mike. Was so awesome to be part of the team. And one of our core values at Eat Real is better together. And so we really believe that our partnership with the YMCAs of California, it makes us better as a nonprofit. And we're so excited that it is truly just the beginning of our partnership, and excited to do more sugar challenges and find other creative ways to collaborate. So thanks, Mike. And a huge congrats to everyone who did it. The 7 days, maybe. So, woo! I know my family also is feeling great right now and thinking about how do we just incorporate this more and more into lifestyle. So wonderful. I am super excited today because we have some of my favorite people on the planet on our panel, and that I truly believe are some of the top experts in terms of integrated wellness and overall well-being. And they're going to be sharing about their passions for wellness and creating a healthier and more vibrant world. So I love each of them, and I could go on and on about them, but I'm going to ask that they each introduce, our panelists each introduce themselves to all of you. So we'll start with Dr. Riva. If you could introduce yourself, that'd be amazing.
Sure. Thank you, Nora. Thanks everyone for being here today. It's so exciting to just be able to share our passion for holistic wellness and the brilliance that real food brings into our world. So my background is in functional medicine, but I actually got started with conventional medicine on a path that led me to burnout and just the worst shape that I had been in mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, being on that path that does not prioritize wellness. And so I made it 2 years into residency before I decided to discontinue that education and look for what else is out there, and discovered functional medicine after getting familiar with Dr. Mark Hyman and his work. And that opened up a whole world of being able to apply functional medicine to my other passions, which include fitness. I compete in bodybuilding, and a lot of my work revolves around, helping women, mostly women, some men, be empowered in their bodies through real food and just be able to feel the worthiness that is being human. And I capture all of that in my best-selling book called More Than Enough: The Healing Journey to Love Yourself, Listen to Your Gut, and Live Your Truth. So it's an honor to share my work with you guys today.
2 best-selling authors on this panel. Amazing. Thank you, Dr. Riva. I'll pass it to our other author, Sonia Hunt, could you please share?
Yes, thanks, Nora. I'm so excited to be here. So I am a food allergy activist, a TEDx speaker, a first-time author who is now a best-selling author, along with Dr. Riva. And my story is I was child and adult of severe food allergies, asthma, and environmental allergies for over 4 decades, and been on the ER table 4 times, on my deathbed. And 2008 was the last time where I found myself on the emergency room table, almost dead because of my food allergies. And that was the time where I basically hit my rock bottom, said enough was enough. And I needed to really, really get to the root cause of just what was happening, not only in my health, but across mind, body, physical, mental, spiritual, emotional health, and how to really eradicate my allergies. And in my book, I actually talk about this story, and I created a program called 3 to Be, which 10 years later, after 1 decade of creating a program and working it and testing, tweaking, I am incredibly happy to say I eliminated all of my food allergies, which was a huge, huge, huge win for me and for my doctors. Similar to Riva, I have an amazing functional medicine doctor I worked with as well. So I'm really excited to be here and share and learn. So thanks for having me.
Amazing. Thank you. And Dr. Boyana, could you introduce yourself, please?
Yes. Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Boyana Yankovic-Weatherly, and it's such a pleasure and such an honor to be here among my amazing and inspiring co-panelists, Dr. Riva and Sonia. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in and really acknowledging the importance that that food has for our health. So having also gone down the conventional medical path with becoming an internist, I decided to do a fellowship in integrative medicine and a certification in functional medicine to really support the way that I support my patients. And I think that once I recognized that they're so much beyond what we can offer in our conventional medicine setting, and that we can complement it with really supporting patients on this level of really attending to our basic health functions and our fundamentals of our health habits, and then building up on that and attending to our gut microbiome, which we're going to talk about today. Once I started down that road, there was no turning back. And so now I combine these different modalities to support my patients, and it's just so rewarding to see people getting better and really using the empowerment and the knowledge to help themselves and to really make major changes in their lives and their health.
Wonderful. Thank you. Okay. You all see now. so excited to bring everyone together today to hear from them and to learn together. So let's dive in. So let's start with the idea of good mood food. There's a reason that we called it the Good Mood Food Panel, and not just because the holidays are coming up and we're going to have a lot of good mood food coming up, but there's a lot of cutting edge research emerging about the connection of gut health and brain health. And so I'd love to talk specifically about that and about your more about your personal experiences and your journeys with the intersection between food, gut health, and brain health. So let's start with Dr. Boyana. If you could explain a little bit more about the science behind the connection between gut health and brain health, and maybe particularly about what you're seeing about its impacts, is about how what we put in our stomachs impacts our gut microbiome, and then how that relates to brain health. If you could share about that, that'd be amazing.
Absolutely. And this is really one of my favorite topics that I could talk about forever. So feel free to interrupt me at any point, but just kind of from a high level, let's just start by mentioning that our large intestine contains up to 500 different species of bacteria, and that there's a total of about 100 trillion bacteria in our digestive system. And the ratio of the bacterial cells to our own cells in our body is actually 10-1, meaning that there's 10 times more bacteria in our gut than there are of our own cells, which really sort of illustrates the importance that when we're eating and when we're choosing what to put in our body, we're not really just choosing that food for ourselves, but we're choosing it just as much for the bacteria and for selecting which kind of bacteria do we want to proliferate and grow and thrive, and what kind of bacteria do we not want to have more of. So why are these bacteria that are in our gut so important for our health? Well, they have actually a number of roles that researchers have found. One of them is that they have this metabolic function in our gut. So gut bacteria are involved in fermentation of food that we eat and in helping us produce vitamins such as vitamin K and B vitamins. The gut bacteria can also have anti-inflammatory properties, and we can certainly talk a little bit more about this down the road, but depending upon what types of foods we're eating and what kind of bacteria we're encouraging to proliferate, that can interact with our immune system and ultimately increase certain signals that are pro-inflammatory, meaning that lead to inflammation in the body. Our gut bacteria can also protect our intestine from being colonized by potentially harmful bacteria. So this is why it's also really important to tend to the good bacteria. And then lastly, our gut bacteria can stimulate production of neurotransmitters such as serotonin in our gut, which is also very important. So what influences the gut bacteria? Well, diet, clearly. This is what we're going to talk about today. But also other bacteria's products, such as antimicrobial peptides, can influence the different populations in the gut that grow or get inhibited by this antimicrobial peptides as well. And then medications such as antibiotics and other medication can certainly control the populations in our gut, but also supplements such as prebiotics and probiotics, which we can touch on, which sometimes can be helpful in certain scenarios to support our gut and our body in addition to the food that we're eating. So there's a great body of research really showing how our gut microbiome is associated with our mental health. And we know that our gut and our brain are connected. That's not a surprise. And the vagus nerve is really one of the major connectors between our digestive system and our brain. And this connection goes both ways. So both our brain can affect our gut and our motility and how we perceive certain symptoms, but also the signals that are produced from our gut, from the bacteria in the gut, from the very subspecialized cells in our gut, they can influence our mood, they can influence our behavior, they can influence how we perceive symptoms, and so on. So I hope this answered your question. I can talk more on this topic, but I also want to make sure that our other panelists get a chance to talk. But let me know if you'd like me to continue or leave it at that
So
for now.
I think we'll have more questions. I think people in the audience too. We'll save questions for the end as well. I think I definitely have more questions than I was taking notes. But it's one thing that you said that was particularly interesting for me was like, I definitely grew up thinking it was a one-way street, that my brain really drove the rest of my body. And so to think of it as a multi-way street, two-way street, or an interconnected highway system rather, where like how much your gut is impacting your brain and how there's connection happening there nonstop was just a really powerful visual for me, I think, as you were describing that. So thank you so much. And I think we'll have more questions, but I'll have a question for you, Dr. Riva, along the same lines. Can you share a little bit about what you're seeing in the field? I know you work one-on-one with so many different people. So could you share about what you're seeing in the field and then how you're seeing food being used to mood boost?
Sure. So I'm going to focus a little bit more outside of the gut, and a lot of the major symptoms I see there would be, I guess, two major things. Issues with anxiety have been huge. I think every single one of my clients struggles with that, myself included, and then sleep issues. And so I so appreciate Dr. Boyana mentioning the serotonin that is produced in the gut, because, how do most of our anti-anxiety meds work? They work by increasing serotonin reuptake at the cells. And so whenever we have we're starting with the compromised gut. Many of us also have what we call leaky gut, a condition where the cells of the gut are too permeable, allowing stuff to come through. So the microbes, toxins, some of those things that Dr. Boyana mentioned affect the gut microbiome negatively. So when our gut is too permeable or leaky, things are going to come through that are going to drive that inflammation and inhibit our body's ability to produce those key neurotransmitters, serotonin being a very important one. It's, that happiness chemical. And so whenever I have somebody, like the first person that comes to mind is a client he's very much like me. He's, type A overachiever, loves his work. So he's very driven to stay up late to finish a project. And then that will throw off the sleep cycles. And then, up around 3 a.m. because, our stress will trigger that, early awakening response. And so I always go back to the foundations. And for me, education is key. That's where I start with everybody, and just empowering them with the knowledge of like, hey, we have this whole system here. Our gut is the foundation of our health. And so once I help them understand how important just building routines, building better sleep hygiene, building better eating habits so that they feel empowered versus more of a sense of victimization to the stress and just life period, it helps them to be able to make those changes more sustainable. As I think a huge thing, it's like, yes, we're coming off the 7-day no sugar challenge. We feel great, but chances are many of us might not adhere to it forever. It might not be sustainable for all of us to not do any added sugar ever again, but we can find that happy medium that works for our lifestyle. And so with the anxiety, going back to the anxiety and the sleep issues that I see so much, simply getting people to eat real foods. That's why we're all here talking about eating real food. It opens up so many more doors than we even realize, getting back to those basics. Once we know how to nourish our bodies and it feels good to have that energy. It feels great not to have to turn to energy drinks at 3 o'clock in the afternoon when we crash because of the ups and downs in our blood sugar from all the added sugar. Once you get into that rhythm, it's a self-sustaining cycle. And so, you know, that education it truly is power whenever we can help people understand how your body works and how we have such a huge, so much control over, you know, our positive outcomes.
Yeah, I think this panel is making me realize just how interconnected everything is. So thinking not only how our gut and our brain are interconnected, but then also how our different habits are so linked. You know, how our food and whether if we eat too much sugar, or if we eat not enough real food, then how that impacts sleep, and then how sleep impacts anxiety, and then how anxiety and now creates these loops within our bodies. So thank you for sharing those examples, Dr. Riva.
You're welcome.
Sonia, could you share a little bit from your personal experience? I know you've done sorts of biohacking and just lifestyle changes in your own life. So could you share about how your life changed as how your life changes as you change what you fed your gut, and how you personally transformed your allergies and your mood?
Yeah. So, you know, when it comes to food allergies, you know, elimination diet is really the name of the game, right? So for most of my life, we focused on the physical side. So you're allergic to all of this stuff, just don't eat it. Now that seems really easy, but it's actually not easy, as well, as we all know, because there's so many names for certain ingredients as well. And I always say, you know, you have to, you're like the CIA if you have food allergies, because you're always digging into like, what is this? And what's the alternative to this? You know, gut health and food allergies, we're starting to see a lot of research, you know, between the two, and are there links, and what are those links? And so for me, I was eliminating a ton of food because I had, you know, I've clocked in the upwards of 32 plus food allergies in my lifetime, which sounds super insane. And you might wonder, what can this girl even eat? So there was like then a bucket of things that I could eat, but that food was not necessarily healthy for me overall, right? So it's kind of like the difference of, I do not have a gluten allergy, so I can eat pasta, but is eating boxed pasta every day really a good thing for you, right? So this is kind of, again, like decades of doing this, like, don't eat this, but I can eat all this stuff, wasn't necessarily healthy. And it led to, like, you know, weight gain, feeling sluggish, headaches, digestive issues, everything. And I always say I was like perennially in like just a bad mood all the time. So in this transformation, you know, that I did starting in 2008, when I had that, you know, really bad food allergy incident, you know, for me, like micro-stepping or taking these small steps every day was really the way to go. Some people can go cold turkey. Some people need to kind of micro-step, you know, like I needed to. And I really needed to cut out all of those things that were not making me feel good, but understand what are those things that would make me feel good. So my, you know, adjust my mood. And I actually have, if you can believe it, a massive spreadsheet of ingredients that has everything from, you know, am I allergic to it? What are different names, texture, taste, you know, how much fiber is it? Is it low carb? Is it low cal, etc. And just like a macro, you know, even when I'm shopping, I can like drop in an ingredient and it will tell me like, can I have this? Can I not have this? And in this process, when I started working with the functional medicine doctor, we actually did find out that I had leaky gut going on as well, which I did not know. So that was like a huge revelation of, okay, so now what are the things that I really should be eating, you know, rather than the things I was eating that I was not allergic to. So we're talking about things like no more pasta, shirataki, you know, noodles, no more rice, which really did white rice kill me. Having parents from India, we eat rice all the time, but, you know, became to love, love, love cauliflower rice, right? Not eating red meat. I just completely said no to things like, you know, red meat, and went plant-based. And plant-based has really saved my life as well. You know, in terms of the ingredients, and that was helping my overall health, not just, you know, good alternatives to food allergies. So when I saw myself like making all of these daily swaps, you know, not all at once, but slowly at a time, I'd take one thing out of my diet and I'd look for something that had that same like texture, taste. I could cook with it. I felt satisfied. Boom, all of a sudden, I started seeing that mood boost. I started getting leaner. My gut started to get healthier, and I would see it on my skin. My skin started glowing. So just overall, these small changes, which are definitely doable, but I would say exactly what, you know, Dr. Boyana and Dr. Riva have been saying, like that education and that research, it really also starts with just what is going on in your body and getting to the core of that to even know like what to feed your gut. And that's the whole exercise that I went through.
I love it. I love the idea of micro stepping because it's so approachable, and every day is a new day and you can take new micro steps of the day and during the day. And then I think it's super interesting to be just so in tune with exactly how different foods make you feel good. Does it give you a good mood or not? And so I like just the personalized approach where we can all just be aware of, did that give me energy? Did that take energy? Did that make me feel positive? Did that make me feel negative? Was I grouchier afterwards? Was I happier afterwards? I love that just personalization on it. And that's just something we can start to do after we have a bite of food and throughout the day. So I like thinking of food as energy and how we can each take a personalized approach with it. So thank you so much for sharing your story. And amazing. And I love that you went, how many total was it, Sonia?
32 plus.
32 plus allergies. And now you're allergy free, right? Like totally allergy free, right?
Totally in remission. Yeah, absolutely.
Amazing. Incredible. And I won't give anything else away because her book, the more details are in her book. But one, I'd love to, we just spent a bunch of us on this call and thousands of people from around the state of California and around the country just did the no sugar challenge where we had no added or free sugar for 7 days. And so we had this experience looking at, well, what about when you move away from an ingredient, what happens to your mood? And so I'd love to talk about just what a powerful mood booster that was. I know for me personally, I found it to be a real mood booster. And so I'd like to talk about though the science and more about what that impact of reducing sugar, how that impacts your gut, and then how that can be such a mood booster. So maybe Boyana, could you talk about a little bit the science behind what happens when you cut back that in that billions of microbes, like what happens in your gut specifically when you cut back on sugar?
Yes, definitely. So even though, there's continued research emerging in the area of gut microbiome, and I'm sure that we're going to continue to have more advances and really have a better understanding. I'm going to try, as I'm answering that question, I'm going to try and tie into a bit of an answer to Willie's and Michael's questions into what you just asked me, because they both asked or Michael asked, what should we avoid and what should we eat? And then Willie asked, how do we know if our microbiome is healthy? Is it empirical or is there testing available? So I'll try to address a little bit of everything in this answer, but we know that, again, what we eat really has a powerful impact on the microenvironment of the bacteria in our gut. And so when we talk about kind of what actually happens in our gut when we choose to stop or reduce added sugar and introduce more plant-based foods, introduce fiber-rich foods, introduce more healthy fats, and so on, we start to see changes in the gut microbiome. And so, to address Willie's question about the gut microbiome, there are ways to test the gut microbiome, and there are ways to get a sampling of what is going on in the large intestine with respect to the gut microbiome. Without getting into the details of what the tests are, there are different ways of doing genetic testing and culturing the bacteria. there are definitely some pros and cons to doing different kinds of tests. And it's really important to, if you do choose to do that kind of test, to get it interpreted and discuss it with a qualified healthcare practitioner. And again, it's another area of advancement and something that I'm sure in 10 years, it's going to be so much better than what we have now, because we're not able to see all 500 different species, but we can see patterns, and we can detect kind of the healthy microbiome patterns and the less healthy microbiome patterns. And then based upon that, we can make certain dietary lifestyle changes and so on that Dr. Riva was alluding to, in order to change that microenvironment and ultimately change that signaling up to the brain and other parts of our body. So certainly we can see some of the changes in the gut bacteria and some of the potentially pathogenic, meaning potential agents that can cause more inflammation and more infection, and they can signal to our immune system to make more cytokines. And now we're all experts in what cytokines are because of COVID, unfortunately. So everyone knows it's a messenger for inflammation, right? And so we want to be able to regulate the immune system. We don't want too much of a stimulation of the immune system when it's not necessary, because then down the road that can cause it can play a role in developing an autoimmune illness in people who have a genetic predisposition and kind of everything environmentally aligns. It can cause joint aches. It can cause, I think that Sonia was talking about the healthy glow, right? It can cause skin changes when we reduce that inflammation. So we can expect all of these things to start to change. And we really, I mean, I'm sure Dr. Riva, you see, I'm sure this in patients all the time as well, in that when we start changing the diet, when we start building that routine for patients, when we start, implementing some strategies to eat a healthier diet, introduce more whole foods, more fiber, reduce stress, sleep, a good number of hours, we start to notice changes in our gut, we start to notice changes in our mood, and we start to notice changes in our skin. So that's one thing. Now, associated with those changes in the gut microbiome, we also can see changes in the gut wall integrity. And there was a question earlier as well about leaky gut and intestinal permeability. So this is something that's actively studied. It's something that that we certainly, based upon certain symptoms and based upon certain indicators in these stool tests, we can tell that, okay, this patient may probably have a compromised a gut wall integrity. And so we need to work to support that. But that leaky gut and compromising gut wall integrity can certainly also lead to inflammation. And guess what can compromise gut wall integrity? Sugar. Sugar is one of the things. Processed foods, food additives, and so on. So we really want to be mindful of, I think somebody mentioned earlier before we went live, how they decided to make this active choice after doing the 7-day sugar challenge, that they're only going to eat foods without any labels, right? Foods that actually nature intended for us to eat. And this is one sure way that we can know that we're cutting back on any processed ingredients, any sneaky sugars, which we're going to talk about later, and so on. And then in terms of the long-term benefits of cutting out sugar, we see a reduction in weight. We see more stable energy levels. We see that those headaches or mood imbalances from eating too much sugar and then depriving ourselves can go away. Improved gut function, lower cardiovascular risk, lower numbers on our lipid panel, specifically triglycerides, and healthier dental health as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's like the case for cutting back sugar. And it's interesting. There's just a study that came out that 67% of Americans' calories were from ultra processed food. So thinking about when you talk about like sugar, and we know that Americans eat about 6 times more than the daily max amount recommended of sugar. And so thinking about that, and then the impact that it has on all of our moods, and then on the health of our guts, I think there's a big opportunity for us to make some changes to our food culture, so that we can, mood boost as a society and all be a lot happier. Where do sneaky sugars, where do you see them most commonly show up, Dr. Bojana?
Yeah, so one way to kind of detect the sneaky sugars can definitely be in on those labels, and so looking for different names, because you may not see the actual word, sugar, raw sugar, cane sugar, whatnot. You may see fructose, dextrose, corn syrup, high fructose corn syrup, corn sweetener, fruit juice concentrates, like all these different sneaky names that essentially mean the same thing ultimately for your gut. But we can see these in pasta sauce. We can see them in yogurt, granola bars, instant oatmeal, breakfast cereals, energy drinks, iced tea. Dried fruits certainly have a lot more sugar than actual whole fruit, and obviously a lot less water content. So we want to avoid those. Ketchup. There's so many different examples, but those are some of the common ones.
Thank you. Yeah, we in the sugar challenge, one of the daily, cheering us on emails shared that there are over 250 names for added sugars, which just like, it makes it so complicated. But I like that, like check the label, and if there's a label, that means definitely check the sugar. So thanks for sharing those examples. And then Sonia, what are some things that you do regularly and to like consume mood boosting foods, and how do you stay aware of kind of those sneaky sugars that Dr. Boyana mentioned?
Yeah, so I mean, I personally feel like I've been inflamed for decades, right? So not fun at all. And again, like we were talking about, it just really takes over your whole life, right? The headaches, the bloated, the weight gain, the sluggish digestive issues. So I have like three main things that were really important to me, as tips. The first one is getting your mindset in the right place around all of this stuff. In my book and in my program, I talk about how I had to change mindset over the state of my health and well-being, because it wasn't just food allergies. In that process, we learned about genetic predispositions, type 2 diabetes, high, LDL cholesterol, et cetera. All these things were going to come as I aged as well. And if my head wasn't kind of like screwed on right and looking and thinking at these things in the proper way, none of it really mattered, and I would never stay with it, right? And it would be really difficult to kind of achieve what I was trying to achieve. And that's why that daily micro-stepping was really important. And so having that balance, like going into it with a mindset of like everything in life with balance, right? I love that, that line, because, for the most part, it's a conscious decision not to partake in sugar in all of these things. And it might be a little bit difficult, and then it gets easier over time if you're micro-stepping. But then one day, if you decide to partake, it's about not shaming yourself if you actually did, right? And we tend to do that as well, right? We have like that bad off day where maybe you're at a party and you had a piece of cake, and then all of that starts all over again. So getting your mindset in the right place around how you look at food, your relationship with, your health and well-being is really important. As you, point number two, begin to like reading labels and understanding ingredients, for me is everything. As Dr. Boyana said, right, there's so many names like, added sugars, high fructose corn syrup, dextrose, gums, stabilizers, it's just so much stuff. And if I am shopping and I don't know what an ingredient is, I'm always looking at like even the first top 5. I just pull out my phone and I research it right there and then, and I decide like whether I'm going to pick it up or whether I'm going to go for another alternative. So really understanding, or, you could be a little nerdy like I am, and I keep a spreadsheet with all this stuff. And if I feel like if I don't write stuff down, I forget it anyway. So, that journaling process helps kind of embed it into my head. And then the next time I'm like, oh, this brand, that product, nope, can't have it because it has this, and this in it. And the third part, that really worked for me, the third tip is what I call consciously cooking. I've been cooking since I was 5. As you can imagine, with severe food allergies, you really have to. And my parents didn't want me to ever be somewhere where I couldn't like fend for myself and pull something together, or help the person making something for me, and tell them like, oh, if you just do this and this, like I can have that meal and it's totally yummy and healthy and allergen free for me. So, I use a ton of ingredients like oat and sunflower butter and flax seeds and dark chocolate and dark berries, you know, all of this stuff, which is, I turn them into energy bars. I keep them in my purse, you know, when I'm traveling, and I have a lot of fun making them. I make them for friends as well. There's like just a whole process of you know, researching those really healthy ingredients that work for your body, then being in your kitchen and actually making this, and then, you know, taking it out as you're about your day. And, you know, these are products that have a lot of antioxidants in them. You know, think about things like plant protein powders with oat milks. These are great types of snacks you can have. There are, you know, making homemade hummus and veggies. So I would say, like, consciously cooking and being in your kitchen, once you're understanding, you know, those ingredients and what works for you and what doesn't, and once you've also gotten your head in the right mindset around this, are the three biggest things that's really helped me, you know, for a while now.
That is so helpful. Yeah, I think having your perspective about why to do this, and then how to do it and why it's important to you, and then the research piece, and then for sure the preparing. It sounds like it's kind of like the having a plan and the conscious cooking and making it a really positive experience. And that it's all about feeding yourself the best things that you can, so that you are set up for like a happier week. I love that. What are just a couple of your like top, if you mood boosting, what you would call treats? I heard you say energy bar, and is that recipe available like in your book or on your blog? I'm curious. A couple other ones.
I can totally do that. Provide it. Yeah. So Kuli, Kuli, they have these great like protein, you know, plant protein smoothie packets. You can throw that into a oat milk. Califia Farms, where I actually used to work at, we make a sugar-free oat milk, no gums, no stabilizers. That's a really great product. Sakara makes nootropic chocolates that are for like energy, brain clarity, and focus. That's another great, you know, product to look at. And there's another company called Pasha, and that also has, it's PASCHA, and they have a dark chocolate that's like plant-based, free of allergen, 85% cacao. And these are all, you know, kind of those mood boosting, healthy, low to no sugar options.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, and we'll ask you for that at-home energy art recipe as well. Awesome. And Dr. Riva, could you share what your favorite mood? We'll start with, because we just talked about mood boosting treats, and since I'm like, you know, want to keep up the 7-day challenge, but would like to have some mindful treats too. Could you share what your favorites are?
Sure. So my latest kick, so I don't do dairy for, you know, gut sensitivity reasons. I have not read Sonia's book, but when I do, I'm going to get rid of that dairy intolerance. But I'm always looking for a really great quality coconut yogurt that doesn't have like chunks of coconut in it. Like I want something comparable to Greek yogurt, but non-dairy, and I finally found it. So that was a huge win last week. The brand is called Kulina. So I don't know if you can find it out in California. So when I was in the Bay, my favorite brand was called Coyo, Coyo, and it's coconut cream. I want to say it might just be the coconut cream and the cultures and maybe a couple other ingredients, but very few ingredients there. But it's Kulina is the next best that I've come across, and they have a plain flavor, which it's perfect. It's a perfect palette to be able to build whatever you want on top of there. So I go for my super sweet sun gold kiwis, which are, I guess they're in season in New Zealand now. But getting those organic kiwis, what's amazing is that the skin on them is more smooth than a traditional kiwi, so you can eat the whole thing. So you get a ton of fiber from them. And I want to say like 2 of those kiwis, and they're a good size, are like this big. 2 of them is 100 calories, and it's like 3 times the vitamin C as an orange. So we all want our vitamin C these days. And so that's been like my go-to. That's saved me last week, because then I could just get a little bit of that, chop some kiwis and strawberries, and it tastes way better than any Greek yogurt with the super saturated syrup, that stuff at the bottom. That's kind of like a a sugar sludge. So you get like actually real food with this one. So some of my other favorite things, I'm not a huge like pastry person or like need other cookies and snacks and type of thing. Like try to build as much sweet into the savory foods that I'm eating. So I get as much, diversity and texture and color and flavor. So I really love sweet potatoes for that reason. So like I love doing sweet potatoes with a little added cinnamon on there, a dash of cayenne. Love the sweet heat you get from that, and that will knock out any of the sugar cravings. But if I still do have some sugar cravings, then Sonia, the dark chocolate, that's like 80% cacao. That's my favorite because one square you might get, maybe 1 or 2 grams of added sugar if you have a really high quality one, and you don't want more than that. Part of the problem with a lot of sweets and, a lot of milk chocolates out there, you could down a whole bar and, still want to go for the next one.
Mhm.
So turning to as many of the rainbow color foods that you can find, make a fruit salad, berries when they're in season. Those are my staples.
Oh my goodness. I'm so excited. I'm so hungry now and excited for some delicious real food snacks later. So thank you both for those recommendations. One question that we're getting in the comments, and then I know that comes up a lot, is about sugar alternatives. Like, could you, Dr. Riva, talk to us about sugar alternatives and your thoughts on those?
Yes. So, and this is a tricky subject because there's a few different categories, and I should have thought about this earlier, Nora. I can share a couple of references that I have from the Institute for Functional Medicine toolkit.
Amazing. We can send it out as a recap.
Awesome, because I always have to go back to them myself whenever I'm doing education with my clients. And so when it comes to sugar alternatives, when we're looking at the different categories, we have our natural caloric sweeteners. And so these are going to be plant-based things or natural things that aren't manufactured, but they still have calories, but they're going to have a little bit more nutrition to them. Some of them are going to have antioxidants. So these are things like coconut sugar, dates, raw honey, 100% maple syrup, not the Mrs. Butterworth, that's high fructose corn syrup that's dyed brown, blackstrap molasses. Those are all going to have calories, but you will get some B vitamins or various things in those. So like I always skew towards those whenever I have to bake something or cook something that needs sugar and I'm not doing a substitute. That'll come to what my favorite non-caloric sweetener is. And so there are also natural sugar alternatives like stevia leaf, which a lot of us have come across. A lot of people are polarized to it because it might have that bitter taste whenever you eat something with it. So I generally stay away from stevia products. This one other thing, if you're doing some of these alternatives in excess, some of the most common side effects include some gastrointestinal distress, gas, bloating, diarrhea, and no one needs more of that these days. So another one that's on the rise is allulose. So this is it's a rare sugar in that it is found in some foods, some few fruits, but it doesn't raise your blood sugar. Tastes a little less sweet than sugar, and there's not a whole lot of research around it yet, but it is seeming to be promising as a good, like the standard, at least that's what they're saying, to substitute for sugar, given that it's not going to have some of those metabolic consequences of spiking the blood sugar. Like, maple syrup is going to spike your blood sugar because it actually does have sugar in it. Another one of the categories in the natural sweeteners would be your sugar alcohols. And so these may be naturally occurring in some fruits, but a lot of the ones that we're seeing in foods, so you might see the name like xylitol is a very common one, erythritol. These ones end in all, that's the sign for alcohol. And so a lot of these will cause digestive issues as well if you're doing them in excess. But the one exception that, especially if you've done low carb or ketogenic diets, you've probably seen erythritol added in a lot of the alternative, the low carb foods. And that one does tend to be tolerated the best. So when it comes to, making that choice, because sometimes you're not going to be able to avoid the sugar alcohol. Like I try to avoid it if at all possible. But if I see erythritol in a recipe, I do feel a little bit better that I'm not going to be in a situation later. So that's our natural sweeteners. Now, our artificial sweeteners, I try to avoid completely because these do not come from the earth. With a mild exception, like stevia can fall into this category because a lot of times the stevia leaf, they are doing some additives and things to it to make it, and to be honest, I don't know exactly what that process looks like, but in certain forms like the brands Pure Via, Reblana, Splenda Naturals, Truvia, these ones would be brands that would be categorized as artificial sweetener stevia because of the way that it's been manufactured. And so other ones would be Splenda, sucralose is the common name for that, saccharin or sweet and low, aspartame or NutraSweet, Ace sulfame K, or Sweet One. These are all under the artificial sweetener umbrella. So if at all possible, avoid any of these. Stevia tends to be generally better tolerated, but if you are looking for something that has stevia in it, look for one that says the stevia leaf versus just stevia, because if it says organic stevia leaf, this is an actual plant product that's not been tampered with in any way. So this is very confusing as far as keeping all of this stratified. So I will hand off these handouts to Nora so that we can include them. Like, I think it would be a great idea just to keep it on your refrigerator or like have a copy of it in your phone and your photos section. So like Sonia does when she needs to research something in the grocery store, you can pull it up and see, oh, okay, I don't want this. Okay, it has a little bit of this and I'm okay on compromising there. But in general, when it comes to any of like the added sugars, like the maple syrups and any of those, it's recommended from the American Heart Association, which I take their recommendations with a grain of salt, but it's recommended like 6 teaspoons or less per day for women and children, and then 9 teaspoons or less for women. So that's just added sugar. That doesn't account for the sugars that might be naturally occurring if it's a fruit product that then has added sugars in it.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we can share that out too, that little cheat sheet about max amount of added sugar in a day, looking at 12 grams for kids or less than 3 teaspoons for kids of added sugar. So thank you. Thank you. We'll share both of those things out. I think that'll be super helpful. I know I will put it on my fridge. Maybe I'm just going to close with one more question and then we'll see if we have time for any other questions. But if you all could also check the questions and answer via chat, that would be awesome too. And we can do a share out later as well. But Dr. Riva, you serve on Eat Real's board of directors. So I was hoping that you could talk a little bit about how Eat Real is helping schools transform the menu. We're all about making sure that kids have access. Single kid has access to the healthy, mood boosting foods that they deserve at school so that they can really flourish and they can be happy and healthier. So could you talk a little bit about what we're doing to not only, to reduce sugar and to increase access to real foods in schools and why that's important from a systemic change perspective?
Absolutely. So it's, just as we've seen, and so many of us have given examples that we've done in our own lifestyle to make swaps in our diet, that's what we've done in the schools. So, we think about breakfast usually being the time that kids get bombarded with the most sugar. And I can't remember the numbers who quoted in a couple of board meetings ago when we talked about how much sugar is in the breakfast meals, but that just blew me away. I remember it being something like 75% of like the daily value or something insane. But making these swaps is so powerful. So going from chocolate milk to a regular milk, and I reference this, yogurt and how they have all the sugary syrups in it. So shifting from one of those sugary yogurts to yogurt with fresh fruit added on it. And then we think about, all the juices out there and, kids just sipping on Gatorade and Powerade just as a snack, like swapping out juices for fresh cut oranges or apples, like just being able to show the children that it's like, no, we're not taking this away from you. We're providing something real that's going to enhance not just your appreciation of food, but your appreciation for your body on such a profound level. Because when these children, they're able to eat more real food, as we've all seen, like that improves our mood. And kids today, gosh, I just feel for kids in school. And, last year, I can't even imagine being homeschooled and sitting at home with a box of, whatever Captain Crunch, eating and not being able to pay attention. It's so important to set our kids up for the greatest success possible. And so being able to boost their serotonin levels, being able to help them have better attention span because their brain is actually functioning properly, being able to have steady energy instead of coming back from lunch and then totally crashing because they just had 200 grams of sugar in their meal. So we're really setting these kids up for, being the future leaders of this world by enabling them to, have the building blocks from their gut to their brain and everything in between. So the other really exciting thing, which was what won me over to join the board, was when I learned that we've been able to reduce 10 pounds of sugar per child in just a year. So 10 pounds, can you imagine? Like, I can't even fathom eating that. Can you imagine sitting and having to eat 10 pounds of sugar? Like, that's how much was removed. And we're still working towards removing even more sugar. So there's always room for improvement, but being able to see the depths of the work that we've done and the transformation in the kids' lives and seeing how they light up around eating real food. I love that the video from the visit, and the kids are just talking about the textures and colors, and I just love seeing kids light up around food because it really is one of the most powerful things for our future.
I love it. I feel like an ongoing theme of this panel is that food makes us all light up. Like, it makes us glow. It has the power to really give us energy, and that we want every kid in America and everyone around the world to be able to light up through food and to live their most vibrant, happy, and healthy lives. So I love that. We're about at time, even though I have more questions. And so I'm thinking what I'm going to do is I'm going to be interviewing each of you afterwards, and we'll do blog features because I really want to get to the more questions. So I encourage everyone who's checking out this video and who's online right now, make sure that you're signed up for our newsletter, and we'll send out a link afterwards. If you go to eatreal.org, you can sign up for our newsletter because we'll be sharing more content, more information, highlights from this conversation. And I just want to keep this conversation going. So we're going to do that. It doesn't end now. We're actually going to feature interviews of our panelists if they're down to do that. But I want to thank each of you so much. Dr. Riva, Sonia, Dr. Boyana, thank you for sharing your Monday morning with us. Someone just said, yes, such a distinguished panel. We're so grateful. Thank you for sharing your knowledge and your passion and your vibrancy with us. I just wanted to also share that, again, we are so grateful to partner with the YMCA and our nonprofit to do the 7-day sugar challenge. If you did it, we'd love to hear from you. You can message us on social media and let us know how it was and let us know your experience. We'd love to hear how the challenge went for you and for your family. And then I'll just close by saying, Giving Tuesday is around the corner. So on November 30th this year. So, as you're thinking about making a difference events during Giving Tuesday. We'd love it if you keep the YMCA's and also Eat Real in mind. We're all about making sure that kids have access to mood boosting foods so that we can create a happier and healthier next generation. And every gift can help us reach over 200 schools. It's actually going to be over 300 schools. You can go to eatreal.org/donate, or you can email Angelique at eatreal.org and learn more about how you can get involved and give your support and make sure that all kids have access to mood boosting food. So thank you again. Thank you, Sonia and Dr. Riva and Dr. Boyana, and thank you, Mike. And thank you all for being here today.